Well.
Test 1 2. How we doing, y'all?
What's up, guys? GM.
GM indeed.
MG.
GMFM.
OMG 3AC.
Lol.
I've been off Twitter for I deleted the app from my phone to prevent me from doom scrolling, which is a term I heard from Ryan Watkins. I was like, oh yeah, that's what I do on Twitter these days. And but I re-downloaded it to join us today here on this live stream, and I was like, oh gosh, this is why I tuned out for a little while.
Yeah, man. So, what were your thoughts on the THORChain Expo? We had a great time there. Let's get into that.
Oh man, it was super fun. So yeah, for everyone listening, last week Consensus. If you guys are familiar, Consensus is like the second largest crypto conference in the US. They usually host it in New York every year, and this year for the first time they brought it to Austin, Texas, which is our backyard. And once they announced that, we knew we wanted to do something special and bring the THORChain community together, and bring THORChain to Austin, bring the Austin community to THORChain. And so together with a bunch of all the THORChain ecosystem projects, we hosted a big THORChain conference on Wednesday last week, and been planning it for about 2 months, and it was our first time doing an event like this, and worked with some great partners, great sponsors throughout the ecosystem. So THORChain, THORSwap, THORwallet Dex, THORguards, for Rango Exchange, Maya Protocol, and it went beautifully. Like, the production was awesome, the talks were all amazing, the turnout was great, and that was Wednesday last week. And then on Saturday, I was able to land a 90-minute THORChain ecosystem deep dive for THORChain on the foundation stage of Consensus, and we did that, and joined by Familiar Cow and Chad B and Gavin from Nine Realms, and a bunch of ecosystem projects there as well. So the week was a success. It was super fun. Great to see everybody in person. A lot of people are meeting in person for the first time. There are people from all over the world, from Asia, Europe, US, coming together. And so we had a blast. How did you guys enjoy it? You get
Yeah, the panels on Wednesday were a really good time. That was like at our own little venue. It was literally just THORchads pretty much. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I had a good panel with Chad Barraford and Gavin and Matt from Nine Realms, and yeah, we were just talking about basically the stuff that we talk about on here every week, just in person, and just getting their perspective. I love to talk about the future of THORChain, because you guys have such a laser focus on where it's going. So it's always great to hear some visionaries like Chad and Gavin speak on THORChain.
Absolutely, and you're great. It was great to have you up there. Thanks for moderating and for helping with all the content. And then our guy Familiar Cow also presented on Saturday at the main conference. It's about integrations, right? Like nuances and education on how developers can integrate with THORChain.
Yeah, we had a good panel there. Did you know what videos for stuff on Wednesday, and then also for Saturday stuff? Do you know when those videos go live so we can share those with everybody?
Yeah. So we I think released the teaser yesterday, not the teaser, the trailer, or the recap video, and that was just kind of this edited 2.5-3 minute highlight recap from the event. And then we're gonna have full talks from our event, the Wednesday THORChain Expo, released in the next week. And then I'm not sure Consensus owns the content for the Saturday panels that we did. And so I don't know what their plans are for release. We tried to get some clarity on that day of, but we're waiting to hear back still. So, but yeah, I'm excited for that too, because it was all really good stuff and great for the ecosystem. So, Chad B, how was your experience on the week?
It was awesome to see the expo come together. Thank you so much for putting it all together. It was great to meet people in the community, kind of shake some hands and kind of meet IRL. Listen to a couple of really great talks from the community as well, and I had a great fun be on stage with Familiar Cow hosting and all that kind of stuff. And me and Gavin, that's the first time me and Gavin kind of shared a stage or did an interview or whatever together, which was kind of fun for us to kind of riff off each other a bit, which was for me was cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, props to you, Saigon, for putting all that together. I mean, from afar, it looked incredible. I'm really looking forward to all the recordings and pretending like I was there. But seeing all the pictures in the trailer, it looked like such a success. So, great job.
Yeah, thanks. And can't say enough thanks to the ecosystem projects that we kind of split the bill and pitched in, and we were able to have a really healthy budget for production, for the venue. for some small kind of satellite events, like a small party that we hosted, and like a lunch and a private dinner to build community amongst the ecosystem projects and sponsors. Everybody showed up with just help support the event, not just financially, but just spending time together and connecting in person. When we've all worked together, some of us have worked together for months, even over a year, and hadn't met in person yet. And so it was a great kind of way to galvanize community amongst all the projects, which is great. I think the general consensus is it was a hit, and we're gonna try and go bigger and better next year.
Yeah, it'd be great to see something, especially like with a hackathon on that or something like that, something to really bring more devs into THORChain and just like really up that community involvement. Like, it's definitely a great first time, but I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen in the future.
I think so. Let's close it out with. I'd love to hear from you guys, like one highlight from the week, and then one way that he made even better for next year.
See, if you're talking to me, then highlight for me is just meeting everybody and having a good time with the community and being able to share the vision of THORChain with other people, and show how powerful it is, and something to be improved. See, I think having it on Wednesday was. It's before the conference, especially, is difficult because people aren't there on Wednesday, or arriving or don't know about it. So I think better timing on that is key. I think maybe doing it during a they would work. Like, is there so many people there that are just at the conference but not actually at the conference? So we could just be like, hey, just come over here and do our thing. But
cool, yeah, noted. And yeah, it's kind of tricky, timing it when there's so much going on. And then we had a bunch of other stuff planned too, so kind of fitting it in was like a kind of like Tetris. And I can tell you selfishly from the organizer side, it was nice to have like the big nut before the rest of the event. So like all the build up, most of the responsibilities were like kind of like led up to Wednesday, and then after Wednesday, it made it so much easier to coordinate the rest of the week. Just having that other way. But yeah, I think attendance might be better if we hosted it Thursday or Friday, like earlier during the same conference. But cool, noted. And Chad, how about you? What was your highlight from the week, and then how we make it even better for next year?
Yeah, the highlight for me, I guess, just felt like similar to Kyle, like just meeting people. Like there were a bunch of people that I've talked to like a whole bunch of times in the community, as well as like Maya, like other projects and I just never really got to meet those people in person or have a really good conversation, kind of face to face. And so it was really great to meet some more people and kind of put a face to the name, and it kind of makes it all like feel more real in some sense. So that was really like, quite something interesting, special for myself. In terms of improvement, I don't know. I mean, you did a great job the first time. I guess like next year we can work on just like getting more diverse speakers and just getting more than just like the way there's some great speakers from like the different wallet UIs, which is awesome. But it'd be great to get something else, like I don't know what that would be, but like other dexes or who knows.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe additional
institutional investors who are getting into it and why they got into the space. I don't know. We'll figure it out when we get there, but there's some opportunity there, I feel like.
Yeah, agreed. That was one of the things I thought of. So I'll share my highlight, and then I'll echo what you were just saying for my area of improvement. For me, there was a highlight in I kind of, if hopefully people on this call might have seen like photos or the recap video, and you can kind of get a sense for what the stage production looked like. Seeing that in person, but like we kind of like, I told the production team directionally what we were hoping for, like black stage, black backdrop and curtains, silver beaming, and like green accent lights and or green accent bars. But actually seeing that like being built, and it was actually honestly like a little bigger and more epic than I even had in mind when I saw it for the first time. I was like, holy shit, like wow. And then the first time I saw it was with a bunch of the ecosystem partners and bonds. We had a private dinner the night before the event, and then we went to the venue because the production team was there building it out. And so we did like a private tour of the venue before the main event that was going to happen the next day. And just like kind of seeing that come together at the same time as all the ecosystem partners and sponsors, and all the excitement and energy from it, like about to culminate in the event that was to happen the next day. I thought that was a really special moment. I really enjoyed that. So and then the whole week was great. So it's hard to pick one, but that was one that sticks out in memory. And then for areas of improvement, there were two things that I thought of for the expo were, to Chad's point, I think if I'm being honest, like I didn't, most of my like anxiety in my head was on like production of the event, right? So like the stage, all the things that need to happen in person at the venue. And some of the design elements, the posters, making sure that all the sponsors were represented well, and we're going to be happy with how they're represented. So there's a lot of thought and care that went into that. The two aspects of the expo that I think we could level up on, or one was speakers. We had a great draw for the sponsors, obviously, but then I think there was, to Chad's point, room to bring in other speakers like investors that are getting into it, or other protocols or DeFi protocols. Some maybe that are complementary or being built on top of THORChain in the future, but fleshing out a roster I think would be great. And the second one is marketing. Aside from getting listed on the Consensus official website, getting on some of the crowdsourced calendars that people are creating, and then doing and then doing like some light social media stuff. Like we got gone a little bit harder on marketing and gotten even more people involved, and more butts and seats, and more people excited about THORChain. So those are kind of my reflection. But that said, thank you guys so much for your participation and involvement, and for the opportunity. It was such an honor, such a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to going bigger and better. Maybe later this year, but definitely next year for sure too. We'll find some fun events to get together around and recreate magic.
Sweet, thanks for having on, man. Great job.
Awesome, thanks for having me. I'm gonna hop off now and you guys do it, but we'll talk again soon, y'all.
Just want to get a quick shout out to Sonny in the audience, who is Sonny is one of the founders of Osmosis, which is a great cross-chain DEX in the Cosmos ecosystem. So I see him in the audience. Just want to wave hello.
I was just about to say about this Atom integration that's incoming in the next week or two.
Yeah, so that's the next chain that we're looking at is Gaia or the Atom token. We chose that one because they basically are the biggest or most economically significant chain. Now that Terra's kind of dead and gone, at least Terra 1 at least, it's kind of dead and gone. We went towards the Atom space. It's been running on SageNet for I think a week or 2 weeks or whatever it's been. The team decided to not do an audit on that chain code just because it's just a fork of the Terra chain client, which has already been audited. So there's no need to audit twice. In addition to an external audit that's already been audited internally as well by both the devs and the THORsec team. So it just feels like that's been enough. So we're looking to go live with Atom probably in the next week, I think, maybe 2 weeks, depending on some things. And then you'll be able to create an Atom pool on the network and be able to swap in and out of Cosmos in a decentralized way. And then hopefully we can go further down the road of Cosmos. And I think Osmosis is actually one of the ones that I'm interested in personally, just because I think they're one of the more interesting projects in the space, in the Cosmos realm of things. And then integrating them, Osmosis itself to be a DEX aggregator would be like really big, because that would allow people on the in the Cosmos ecosystem to swap in a single transaction from, Atom, Osmo, Juno or whatever, into any asset on any chain in a single transaction. That includes layer ones, long tail assets on Yen chains, all of that stuff. So that's pretty powerful stuff. And so I have my eyes set on Osmosis to do that at some point in the future if we can collaborate and such.
So would that look like an Osmo pool as well, or just through DEX aggregation through the main Cosmos integration?
Both are possible. Which way we actually go would it make more sense to me to go? It's more functionally faster to go through Osmo, and there's just less kind of transactions happening. But at the same time, the Osmo token its market cap is much less than Atom, and so the pool probably wouldn't be as deep as the Atom pool. So it becomes like a kind of a thing that work out downstream. But either one could work. I think you'd have to use interchain accounts, which is a new thing within the Cosmos space, to like take Juno, swap it to, I guess to Atom, and then have the Atom be sent into THORChain. THORChain swaps it to Ethereum, and then Ethereum goes to 1inch or something like this, and then gets swapped to some sort of long tail asset. All that kind of happens in a single kind of workflow. So I guess you could probably just do it from just the Atom, I guess. Now that I think about it more, probably could just do it with Atom without integrating the Osmo chain directly.
Yeah, you could do a double swap on Osmosis or something like that. You can go through the Atom pool and then swap to Osmo, and then swap if there's another target.
Yeah, it's probably able to do either way. And to be honest, I don't know enough to determine which one's more efficient. But I think it would work either way. We could probably do it just with the Atom chain integrated, and we could probably also do it if we integrated the Osmo chain directly as well, which would save an extra swap, I suppose. It would save, because we could swap to Osmo in one transaction, I think. But I think Osmo is different though. If I'm not mistaken, they don't have a necessarily a base pair. Like it's not Osmo and an asset in all cases. Most of the time that's true, I think, but not in all. Sonny obviously would know stuff to say, of course. But my understanding correctly, which I could be incorrect, is that the Osmo is not in all pools, but it is in most pools, I think. But I'm not that familiar with it. But anyways, you swap to Osmo. Osmo gets sent to THORChain. THORChain swaps it in 2 swaps to Ether, and then Ether gets sent to Uni, and then Uni swaps it to some long tail asset, or to Bitcoin, or to Litecoin, or Doge, or Avalanche. I don't know, like whatever. Like the kind of the whole thing opens up at that point. And I think I think both Sonny and I probably agree with each other of like that one of the goals of what we're trying to accomplish in the space, being a cross-chain DEX, is to kind of create this feeling sense that even though these chains are all isolated from each other, they're independent entities that don't really have a direct relationship with any other chain for the most part. We want to create this kind of world where, in a transition, or it just makes it feel like it's all one ecosystem, even though it's separate ecosystems in reality. And so I think both Sonny and I and the THORChain team are pushing for this concept to make this whole system feel like one system instead of separated countries.
We'll get there one step at a time. It takes a while to get these integrations up. Right now, Atom is on StageNet, so I guess it could be expected within hopefully a week or two, just once more testing's been done. But you can swap with Atom right now on StageNet if anyone wants to test. So the integration is very, very close, right around the corner. And then hopefully we can get some great aggregation partners in there to really drive volume through the Atom pool, to drive yield into people who want to pool their Atom into the THORChain pool with Rune, and then also just provide that as a service to people who want to swap in and out of the Cosmos ecosystem. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and next up after Cosmos, after Atom is AVAX, which is I think our first low gas fee EVM chain that we're looking to integrate with. That's been in works for a while. It's kind of ongoing. We are in kind of talking to at least one DEX in that ecosystem that wants to get integrated into THORChain directly. So within there, you can swap in and out of Bitcoin and other assets and other chains, and that just makes their UI look like a lot more powerful, because you can just in a single transaction get access to any asset that you want, more or less. Which we're hoping to do that with pretty much any kind of smart chains we connect it with, to just kind of integrate with a bunch of DEXs and DEX aggregators to kind of connect every DEX to every DEX, so that every DEX has access to every asset on every ecosystem in a single transaction, without having to own 7 different wallets and go through these that are rug pulled underneath you and all the kind of mayhem we've seen before.
Yeah, so AVAX is currently not on StageNet. That will probably be on StageNet within the same time frame that Osmo will be launched on ChaosNet, most likely.
Yeah.
But you said Osmo. I think you mean Atom, but
yeah. AVAX.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So AVAX is take a little bit longer because that needs its own external audit as well, because that's a completely new chain connection. So that'll take a little bit longer, but we're hoping to have a big launch for that with a great launch partner and a great aggregator already lined up off the gate.
Yeah, I think the aggregator is where this stuff gets really exciting and just fulfills the vision of anything to anything. And of course we get in the weeds on these spaces and stuff like that, people that are tuning in, but for the average user, this is really about abstracting all those things away and just going to a DEX, pick your favorite one, hopefully, and have access to native Bitcoin, have access to whatever Cosmos ecosystem, IBC asset, whatever AVAX ecosystem, whatever ERC20, and just be able to swap anything to anything in your own wallet, non-custodial. So that's the vision that gets me really, really pumped up. And it's great to hear all the progress. I mean, it feels like in the next, coming couple of months, we're really going to start to see that vision really play out beyond just some core L1 assets. So really exciting.
Yeah. And that will hopefully make it be this kind of corridor in the greater ecosystem. The people are moving between chains. They actually Saigon's not here anymore, but he has a really good analogy for it that he said in his talk on the CrossChain Expo, is that if you look at Uniswap or Sushi or one of those things, you're moving around within a particular ecosystem, between a particular chain, which is kind of like having a driver's license to get individual between states within a country, right? To get from Florida to Georgia. But if you go across the chain, you need a passport. And so THORChain in effect is that kind of passport system, right? Which is really kind of interesting way of phrasing it to help understand the concept. And so you'll be able to get a driver's license and then drive to the airport, get your passport to go to another country. And then once you're there, you can go to any other state, that country, right? Like it's almost like THORChain is the airplane, and DEX is local to a particular ecosystem are the like Ubers that you call to get to the airport, and you call from the airport to whatever your final destination is. It's kind of an interesting way to kind of phrase an analogy to phrase it in. And by doing so, like THORChain becomes this really super important and critical infrastructure for the greater, for like the entire ecosystem, not just for THORChain's own ecosystem, but like for the Ethereum ecosystem and for the Bitcoin ecosystem, for the Doge and the Atom and whatever else. Like it becomes this critical, fundamental infrastructure that you can't imagine a world without it. Fast forward.
Yeah, it's still the only infrastructure that allows cross-chain swaps with Bitcoin and other UTXO chains, things that are not just EVM. It seems like everyone nowadays is trying the EVM multi-chain route and saying that like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. We can swap between any single EVM chain. We're multi-chain. Like this is the end of multi-chain. Solved it. But it seems a lot of people have forgotten about the UTXOs, which are obviously Bitcoin, the behemoth in the room that everyone just somehow seems to forget about. But THORChain is designed from the start.
If you sum up like all the EVM chains together and their like market cap, it's like I don't know, maybe 30% or 35% of the liquidity of crypto. Like Bitcoin itself is center 60%. Whatever the hell that's dumbness. Like I said, like just to ignore the most important asset, the most liquid asset, the most in demand asset, the most like safest asset or like risk off asset in the space is it's just short-sighted, and to call wrap Bitcoin the same as Bitcoin is obviously being misleading at best.
Yeah, Chad, I like what you've said a few times on previous spaces is like in these discussions you've had, you've asked like, oh, like, well, why not? Like why aren't you integrating native Bitcoin? And like the answer is just like, oh, well, that's really hard.
Well, yeah. It's like honestly, if THORChain, like the team behind THORChain wanted to build an EVM to EVM bridge, like we could have accomplished that 3 years ago. Like that wasn't really. It's relatively speaking, it's a lot. Not that it's easy, but it's a lot simpler than what we're trying to accomplish here by a significant margin. We could have launched that years and years ago, but we didn't do that because we stayed focused on like a holistic solution to this cross-chain problem, and we didn't want to ignore the most important asset of all, which is obviously Bitcoin. And so, like, we want to be chain agnostic. We want to put as little requirement as possible on a chain to integrate with THORChain. And like right now, that requirement is like, oh, can you have a memo in your transfer field, which is extremely common. And, oh, can we generate private keys? Well, okay, like these kind of simple and basic things, not so much like, oh, what version of Solidity are you running or something like this. Just make so many assumptions and just, we try to keep it as small as possible. Even the fact that we can integrate with Monero or like a crypto chain like Monero, that by itself is just like shocking just because it's such a difficult chain in so many ways and it's so complex and challenging. And the fact that we're capable of doing that is like, that is huge to me. Like to me, Monero is the most private focused chain out there. And it's like, it does privacy play the most effectively. And to be able to move in and out of that in a decentralized way without being KYC'd is like, if you're trying to accomplish the goal to be a decentralized private coin, you can't do that by asking like, Uncle Brian Armstrong over at Coinbase to get in and out of it. That just fundamentally kind of breaks the whole model to some degree. And the same thing with Bitcoin, like even if you're not looking for privacy, you're just looking for decentralization, being able to move in and out of it in a way that doesn't require KYC or ask permission is like critically important to achieve the goal that Bitcoin's trying to achieve for itself, right? I can't argue. I can argue all day with some Bitcoin maxi of why it needs THORChain, because be the world's most decentralized coin, but then require centralized entities to get in and out of it. That just fundamentally just breaks the whole point of it. Not the whole point of it, but like a significant part of it of like, hey, it's decentralized, but I have to ask Brian Armstrong to get in and out of it. Like that's just so that logic is just, wraps upon itself like a pretzel.
Or deposit your funds to like Trader and hope that your funds aren't just irreversibly lost forever.
Well, yeah, Trade Ogre is kind of a funny one because it's just like this thing, no KYC, but probably needs to be KYC. Probably will go to jail at some point. Like that, just like I wouldn't put my funds in Trade Ogre for any length of time and be very careful, especially with large amounts of funds. But I mean, I don't put much funds into any thing. Like I had a little bit of funds in like BlockFi until recently. I'm just like, you know what, I'm just going to pull it out, and just because you never know what's going to happen. The CeFi like it doesn't really serve a lot of purpose or value just by holding in Coinbase or BlockFi or any of these services. It's like you're not really getting much of a yield or anything. And so it just adds risk without reward. So just logically speaking, just get out of those things, pull out. Unless you're actively trading or you're doing a loan with BlockFi or something of this nature. But like, if you're not, then just get your money out. You don't want 3AC or Celsius shit to be a way for you to lose money.
So in other news, in THORChain, it seems that Terra is finally Ragnaroked and gone. So it looks like those pools are completely destroyed now. All the LPs have were automatically refunded the remainder of their positions. So it seems that the Terra debacle is finally behind us.
Yeah, I think until people want to, maybe people want to add Terra 2 in the network. I don't know if that's going to be a thing or not a thing, but for now, I think we're done with Terra as a community until people feel differently about Terra 2.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to finally put like some closure to it after such a crazy month. But it looks like, I wasn't super on top of like any of the technical side or anything, but it seems like everything went super smooth with like the new, because that was like needed to be coded from scratch basically, right? Like there wasn't like that wasn't a thing that THORChain could just have done prior, right? To just like Ragnarok a pool like that. So it seems like everything went across pretty well at least from my standpoint.
I mean, we had the code in there before, but it was never really tested, and it was never really like it was like 95% done. But we we had it set up for like Ragnaroking an entire chain before, like in single chain KSNet, just because we wanted to Ragnarok single chain KSNet. But then, like, we didn't think that we were going to have to Ragnarok any pools or chains in multi-chain. Like, we just didn't see that as a realistic outcome in the next couple of years, which obviously that was wrong because Terra, obviously collapsed. But like, we just figured, well, we're adding like the main chains, like, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum, like those things aren't dying and they're going to remain economically, significant for probably forever for the most part.
Yeah, definitely an unexpected thing because I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the only time it really needs to be used in the next, who knows, 5 years or something like that. But I
mean, it all depends. Like, I think the problem that we're going to have as a community is defining which chains we want to add into the future. And so like part of it, like if you're speaking objectively, the chain probably like THORChain should not add any chains that are like younger than 2 years old or haven't gone through like at least a bull and a bear cycle just to prove they're not like, a flavor of the cycle in a sense, like a flavor of the week, flavor of the cycle. And so like, but like next bull cycle can be some new chain about like the Terra equivalent or the Solana equivalent or like whatever it is that just kind of goes from, 10 cents to like $100 or something crazy in a relatively short period of time. And then everybody's gonna be like, oh, you have to add this thing. It's here forever. It's going to be the biggest thing ever. Like everybody's very bullish on it, all that kind of stuff. But then, something happens. Like same thing with like Ohm and like other projects that start off with a huge kind of explosion and you get like these diehard people behind it and people are saying it's going to be the future, blah, blah, blah. And then, it's not just, that's why you have to wait like at least one bear and bull cycle to kind of really let the market decide in the long term, like the long-term viability of any.
Yeah. Even then, like, I still feel like the Terra is kind of unique because something like Ohm is like still, like, yeah, the price went down, but it didn't like literally, implode to actual zero and like some kind of catastrophe. Whereas like with Terra, like, so most chains would probably like, yeah, maybe they kind of lose their hype, but they probably wouldn't need to be like extract out in this kind of like apocalyptic scenario that we just went through. Probably a rare situation.
Yeah. That's to be fair. That's I mean, Terra is also the most extreme example, right? But yeah, it's just something for the community and the node operators to like really kind of think about when they're deciding what change to add. And like, and of course, it's okay to make mistakes too. By the way, like if you add a chain and it doesn't work out, then that's fine too. Like it didn't hurt us as a project very much at all, and so it just like centralized exchanges do the same thing where they add some new token or some new thing, and then to zero like eventually, but that's okay. We're not trying to pick like winners and losers per se. We're just not trying to like spend months trying to add a new chain only to have it collapse 2 months later or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's back to the chain agnostic. What's economically significant? What does the community want? What's going to add the most value? Be the most important? I know one of the new ADR processes is around this stuff too. Maybe Pluto will be around, I don't know, next week or the week after because we had those audio issues last time, but maybe he can go over that stuff and how like the chain adding and removing processes are going to be kind of dialed in. Yeah.
Having a more formalized process for like making changes, kind of like what BIP is for Bitcoin or BIP is for Ethereum. I think it's something we've been talking about in the project for like even before it launched. Like we always kind of talk about it. At the time we called it THORChain Improvement Protocol. But it makes sense to have that as you go further down the maturity line, and THORChain becomes more big, and it gets it's eventually it's gonna move slower in terms of its ability to like make changes and improvements, and you're gonna get bigger and heavier and more mature. But you want to have that to some degree, right? You want to have that kind of like more stringent. You don't want to be like running by the seat of your pants, on a $10 or $50 billion project. You want to be slow and deliberate. Which is frustrating for me because I'm a run fast and like shit code kind of guy. And so like my skill set's more valuable in the beginning of a project than it is kind of at that stage where it's just trying to solidify and have a formal process and that kind of stuff. But it's what the project needs, to be fair.
Yeah, and hopefully this new ADR process can just make things more transparent for everybody, so everyone. Basically, there's some kind of discussion forum to discuss the pros and cons of any kind of new change to the architecture of THORChain. That's what the ADR is meant for. So that includes like chain additions or new features. So
THORFAT's coming up.
Yeah,
we're going to do a vote on that at some point. Maybe in a month or two or whatever the hell the number is. But like,
yeah, like an ADR for THORFI is like exactly what the process is for, to lay everything out there and then to have to be the node decide whether that's something that they're interested in, like whether that's code that they're interested in running or code that they're not interested in running, whether they think that'll be detrimental to the network or positive to the network or have drawbacks. And then everyone can actually vote on whether that thing would be implemented or not. So yeah, hopefully the new process will work out. It's still being, we're still experimenting with it and trying to get it to where it needs to be. But, early stages for, I guess the mainnet launch, which is soon. Yes, I hope.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for our partner to get their ducks in a row. They tell me that it's soon. I have no control over that. I'm just kind of waiting for them to give me the thumbs up or whatever, which I'm hoping to be in a week, but is what it is, and I'm just waiting for them.
Very interesting, because we have seen the Binance upgrade take place, which was long awaited.
Yeah, I think that's upgrading their BEP2 to native Rune, correct? That's what they're like. I think they have like 30 million Rune, but they're not actually listing native Rune yet on their exchange. Right? Or did they already do it? Or did I miss that part of it?
I thought they did it. I mean, I don't use it, but I'm pretty sure it was. I thought it was done. Yeah.
Oh,
I could be wrong.
Maybe it happened and I wasn't even aware of it.
I could be wrong. I don't use it anymore. But
someone look it up. Now I'm curious. Now to go look it up. How do I use a computer?
Well, first turn on your VPN.
I'm fairly sure they're on native now. If anyone has confirmation, you can just request to come up. But
yeah,
I think it is. If not, then it will be integrated very soon. Like we saw the other day that they were actually upgrading them with the upgrade alerts for huge amounts of runes, and so it looks like their supply is partially, if not fully, upgraded already. Although I'm not sure. They are allowing withdrawals and deposits right now. I guess that's another question.
Yeah, I'm just googling to find out.
I'll try to pull it up too as we keep going here.
See this. So Binance has completed the swap of BEP2 THORChain. Binance completed the mainnet swap of BEP2 THORChain Rune. The conversion to mainnet Rune, which token was conducted at a ratio 1-to-1. Deposits and withdrawals for mainnet Rune are now open. Please note the withdrawals for BEP2 Rune tokens no longer be available. Blah, blah, blah. Do not deposit BEP2 Rune. Please find your assigned Rune deposit. Yeah, I guess it is. Yep, you now deposit native Rune.
Yep.
So I guess that's it. Oh, I thought it was just the conversion of the coin, but not the swapping it.
Well, LFG, I believe KuCoin announced they would be. I don't think that one's taking place. Is that right? Do you guys know?
I'm not actually 100% sure about that. I posted that it was, but I think that it might not be. I think it was just that Rune USDC or T new pairing. I don't know if they've actually announced anything yet for KuCoin.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't actually have a Binance.com account because I'm an American, so they don't let me in that, so I can't actually look for the thing. But yeah, it looks like it's live. So I guess we're basically probably mainnet in this week or next week. Well, it's just amazing.
Yeah, should be next week. Here, Asian's going to come up here for a second. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Asian?
Some of that sex stuff. I was talking to the guys from Huobi and KuCoin, and they were also at CrossChain, and they were looking to list native Rune. So just a little bit of alpha there.
Yeah, man, that's great. The more listing, I guess, the better in some ways. The only risk, though, for this is that we always want to maintain that Rune's swap volume is predominantly on our own exchange. So having a bunch of different sectors are a good thing, but we don't want a place where, I mean, this is all in the economic white paper, if you guys read it, that was written like a couple of years ago. But we want to make sure that Rune maintains a trade volume of Rune. Like the most of the kind of weight behind the trade volume is in our own chain, in our own network, which I think is naturally going to happen. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, I think it'd be natural, but how, like, do you have thoughts on like how you would influence that? Like, are there things that can kind of steer it in that direction if needed, or?
Not like we can do it in terms of like steering it, or we can message, we can tell some exchanges or ask them, request them to delist the token, I guess, in the more extreme scenarios. But I think the benefit of having something like this is that it'll cause arbitrage to be able to arbitrage more efficiently, right? From like Bitcoin to Rune to other assets. And I think because of that, the trade volume will inherently or most likely be in THORChain, because if you see like if you trade Bitcoin to Ethereum as an arb opportunity, because the Bitcoin price is high relative to where it should be, and the Ethereum price is low where it should be, you have an arbitrage opportunity there. And when you trade $100 of Bitcoin to get $100 of Ethereum, you're actually trading Rune twice. You're actually increasing the trade volume of Rune by 2x, by $200 in this hypothetical. And so I think that it's probably using the DEX to arb it. It's just going to create a lot of the volume most of the volume to be on the network itself. But I could be wrong. We'll see.
Another benefit of having native Rune on centralized exchanges is just arbitrage. It just will naturally trend towards higher volume as there's more price correctors. Basically, there's more markets to as there's more markets to buy and sell Rune on, even though they might not be as liquid as THORChain's pools itself. That's another avenue to correct pool prices on THORChain. So going along with mainnet switch, the other big thing that's happening at mainnet, besides just the actual the flair around the upgrade itself, I guess, is kill switch from basically the kill switch of ERC20 and BEP2 Rune. So if anyone here does hold Rune and it's not in a THOR1 address, you should definitely make sure you upgrade before the kill switch gets turned on, which won't be for a little bit, because nodes need to vote on the start date and the end date for the kill switch. Basically, when the redemption stop being 1-to-1 and start ticking down by the day until it gets to 0-to-1, you can't upgrade it at all anymore without losing all of your value. If you currently hold ERC20 or BEP2 Rune, then if you're listening to this now and you don't have your Rune in a THOR1 address, or if you're holding it on a centralized exchange, you should likely be okay, but it's still recommended that you upgrade to native Rune if you can. Sure.
As it stands for right now, when we go through the process of putting the kill switch to a vote by node operators, I think the vote will be should we start it in a month when this thing starts, and then the duration of the thing is 1 year. So after the first month, you get 11/12 of the Rune that you would be getting, and after 6 months, you get half of the Rune you'd be getting, and after 12 months, you get 0. And so it'll just kind of slowly ramp down over the course of a year. So people have had basically over 2 years to swap their BEP2 or ERC20 Rune into native Rune, which is a long period of time and something we've been talking about for a long period of time and pushing for. It's the final kind of push to get people off of those assets, and so we can retire them and get rid of the kill switch, the switch entirely. And there only is one Rune now, and it's just simpler, cleaner, shedding off those the alpha coin of BEP2 and the beta coin of ERC20, and then having the real deal.
So just to clarify, those are the two parameters that nodes will vote on: the how long until it starts, and then what the duration is.
Correct. Yeah, they vote on the block height of which to start the process, so start ramping down the ratio between non-native to native Rune, and then they vote on the number of blocks that the duration would be. I think what the team is probably going to be doing is let's start at 30 days from now, and then the duration is 1 year. Although we could change it to be 6 months, or we could change it to be 2 years, whatever the community wants to do is fine with me.
Yeah, curious. That seems about right. So I feel people would probably mostly agree with that, but curious if people feel dramatically different.
Yeah. But you just know at the same time, people are going to get upset about it. At some point, 6 months from now, somebody's going to be oh, I didn't know I had to upgrade my ERC20 Rune or whatever. But the funny thing is we've been grilled on Twitter about more than just like NFT airdrops and this kind of thing where people get their runes kind of yanked from them. And people like called for like, oh, let's upgrade the token to fix the bug, blah, 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 which wasn't a bug. It was actually commented in the code of why that was done that way. But we kind of did that. We said, oh, yeah, there's a new token. It's called Native Room. Switch to it. And then like people continue to hold the old asset. And so it's like, what more can we do?
Yeah, that does seem to be like really the only concern is just some people are inevitably going to be just like sitting on some ERC20 or BEP2 rune somewhere and just completely not paying attention. But I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but we can't also, at the same time, we can't allow people who aren't paying attention to be the reason why we can't move forward in the project, right? To shed, like it's this kind of this weird balance of like, well, we don't want, to piss anybody off. The room holders and the part of the community, and like we want to make sure they're all good and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, we can't just like infinitely, sit on assets that are, counterproductive for the protocol. Like it's confusing. There are 3 different rooms and which one's doing, and like it just creates complexity and like, especially for newcomers into the space. We want to keep it clean, simple, shed the old beta stuff, move on to mainnet.
For sure. Makes sense. Should we move on to some questions?
Shoot. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Chad?
The only thing I want to talk about, because I'm excited about it, is this whole like yield bearing synthetics concept. I think this is what I'm gunning for these days. Now that THORFi has been kind of like hung up for a while. This is big in many ways. Technically, it's actually big for THORFi as well, by the way. I don't think people probably realize that yet, but we can come back to that part another time. But so what it basically means, for people who don't know, yield-bearing synths gives the ability for people to add liquidity on the asset side to any pool without taking on the price risk of the Rune asset, like without selling half their Bitcoin into Rune and then taking on that price exposure. We found it in talking to like large institutions, especially, that they, like take Celsius, for example. I'll use an example because they're struggling at the moment, but, people give them Bitcoin and they're like, hey, we'll give you, 0.1% yield or something like this on your Bitcoin. But then like, how do they actually get yield? Like, what are the actual avenues to do so? And I didn't want to use THORChain to begin with, because I didn't want to sell off half the Bitcoin to get price risk for their customers and their users, which makes complete sense. Like, I can't blame them for that. I probably would think the same thing if I were them. And so, finding a way that assets can be added in a way that doesn't allow them risk to the Rune asset became kind of like an important thing. Originally, we were going to do it without this, and then we're just going to say, okay, the treasury will give Celsius a loan from the treasury of like some number of Rune, and then they provide the Rune side and the Bitcoin side, but they only really kind of like not selling half their Bitcoin into Rune at that point, so the risk is significantly less for them. But they have to give the Rune back at the end of the contract or whatever it is, and that became really difficult because it required like contracts and like signing things and like 12-year agreements. And then also setting up like multi-sigs for them for Rune, but they don't want to do that. They don't use that. They want to use Fireblocks as like asset management. And then we talk about Fireblocks and get Fireblocks to integrate with Rune. It just became like a bunch of work and difficulty. But then once we figured out a way to do this without involving the treasury or loans or any of this kind of like horseshit, you can just do it directly on chain instantaneously. Fireblocks already supports Bitcoin, so they can integrate with Fireblocks, integrate with THORChain without needing to actually integrate the Rune asset, which is really a big driver here to getting like institutional investment into the network. So I can see what might happen from this. It's just like the pools will get very deep very fast once this feature is released, and big whales can jump in and get some Bitcoin yield more than 0.1% APY that BlockFi might be promising them, right? So I can see that becoming a huge driver to the pool depth of the network, which is critically important for the success of this network.
Which then finally like larger swaps to make more sense, which hopefully will drive a lot more volume. Right. And then all kind of comes together and we kind of see it all play out.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, getting the pools deeper just allows for larger trades with lower fees, which is just, better for everybody. And the LPs will make good money from that. The users will see more trade volume. Also, then the next thing after that will be like, well, how do we scale the bond side again? Like it just is like as soon as you solve one of these problems of volume, pool depth, and bond size, as soon as you solve one of those, like there's something else that's like lagging behind that you have to like figure out a way to improve that, and then something else lagging behind. You just like kind of just like round robin circle amongst these 3 different things, which is constantly being worked on by the team and the community.
Question actually on the yield bearing synths. I saw a tweet from you, Chad, and this might be kind of in the weeds, but we could all use the hit of excitement here. So you said once yield bearing synths are adopted, there will always be space to mint more synths unless pools are full. What's going on with that? That doesn't intuitively make sense. So
yeah, it's counterintuitive. There's so many things with this part of this. There's counterintuitive if you look at it for fixed value. So this is how that works. So there's a cap on synths on the synth utilization, right? And right now it's up to 15%. So once you get to 15%, the network will allow you to mint more synths on the network, right? But with this feature, the reserve is utilized to deploy capital, deploy Rune into the pools to reduce the synth utilization percentage. So you hit 15% or close to 15%, the network just starts to bleed Rune into the pools, like from the reserve, right? And by adding more and more Rune to the pools, you're inherently driving down the utilization away from 15%, like back towards 10%. And people add, more, it gets back to 13%, and then the reserve starts putting more Rune into the pools, which pushes it back down to 10%. And so, as soon as people are minting synths, the reserve is kicking in to drive down the utilization percentage, which means that as an LP, you're not taking on any more risk. Like your leverage position on Rune is not increasing, because the reserve is pushing down that utilization percentage and de-risking the LPs by being LP itself. It's like being kind of bodyguard, sort of bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and taking more and more of the kind of brunt force of anything that happens on the network. You as as an LP, and so it can scale to pretty much until the pools are actually full, which is when the reserve stops putting room into the network when the pools are full. Obviously, it can't do so because it can't break economic security. And so it just stops at that point, and then we hit the cap, and that's when you can't get any higher than that. But as long as the pools are not full, the network will constantly apply downward pressure on the synth utilization to always create more space for ARBs to ARB, or for people to, deposit more Bitcoin to the network to get a yield on it.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, it's not continuing to leverage the existing LPs. Rather, this way, it's just kind of scaling up the depth nearly to there. So
right. And the other thing that people haven't really quite figured out yet about the design is that if you're in a place where an LP withdraws and the synth utilization decreases, the network may deploy, or so synth utilization increases. Excuse me. The network will deploy more Rune into the network, into the pool, and so you effectively have the reserves becoming a protocol-owned liquidity. And so when LPs decide to leave because it's a bear cycle or whatever, the reserve, doesn't care about bear cycles. The reserve doesn't care about bull cycles. The reserve is just intensely diamond hand motherfucker that just is always going to deploy more capital to the pools because it just has a long term, it's not looking for yield in the next 3 months like LP might be looking for. It's looking for supporting the network for the years, decades. That's the time frame that the reserve is kind of thinking in. And so even if people start leaving the network, as LPs might do it in a bear cycle, the reserve kind of kicks in and starts deploying more capital, right?
Yeah, that's really cool because in a bear cycle, people would still want yield on just their Bitcoin. They would still be happy to probably take the single sided, but they might not want the LP exposure. But then if the reserve can take that side, then you still maintain the depth. You still have good potential for swaps, and everything can kind of still go on and work. With the latest thoughts on single sided, would there still be that design where there would be single sided Rune as well, and the reserve kicks in after a point, or is it towards?
In this design, Rune is not used. You can't do single-sided Rune. You can only do single-sided asset. So you can do Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Doge or whatever. But you can't do Rune. And there's some reasons for that. If you think about it logically, the amount of people that want, or the amount of dollars, right, in dollar value of the amount of Bitcoiners who want to earn more Bitcoin is far and away larger than the amount of people who want to earn Rune on their Rune. If you think about it in that kind of context. And so, if you have those people deploying their Rune to the pool side, but not the bond side, well, then you're kind of in a slightly inefficient kind of implementation here, right? Because you want the security to be as deep as possible, as much Rune as you can possibly get on the security side and the bond side to scale that up as high as possible. Then allow the Bitcoiners and the ETH, max ETH, whatever, to deploy their ETH or their ETH, whatever, in their BTC. And so if you have half of people doing the Rune holders doing bond and half of them are doing pool, then you're not quite as efficient in terms of like how deep the pools can get. So I think what I'm trying to think about or work my way towards is forgetting about Rune in the pool side for the most part, and thinking about Rune as an asset that you provide security on. And we came up with an idea how to do this to scale security in a cheaper way, and that is that like this new concept of light nodes, where I call them passive nodes in the GitLab that I wrote up. But basically, like, you can run a non-validator node, like you're not contributing to consensus, you're contributing just to the Asgards. You're like a member of the signing as, you're not part of the actual consensus that is actually driving new blocks to be committed on THORChain. And with that, there doesn't have to be any minimums on the amount of Rune required to run one of these like passive nodes. Theoretically, you could do like 10 Rune. It probably wouldn't actually work out very well because the cost of running the infrastructure, you wouldn't generate enough yield that it would make a profit. But there's no lower cap that THORC sees other than some economic security aspects, which have to be developed. But like, by doing so, you could have like a 50,000 K Rune, passive node, and you can still do bond providers. So you and like, 6 of your friends or something like this can like come together to run one of these passive nodes to generate enough yield, to be able to like get Rune in your Rune. And then also you have your like operational costs of running infrastructure. Now, the infrastructure right now is like the same infrastructure as a full validator. It requires all those things just for economic security. Unless we can figure out a way around that, which we're still kind of brainstorming on how to do that with all the daemons and all that kind of stuff. But that might be the thing to do to make it more available for more people to jump into a passive node, or maybe like we can do like passive node as a service, because now that like we don't have Unisol vaults anymore in the network, somebody who's running a passive node doesn't have an ability to rug pull. Right, they don't like this as they did originally when we had user vaults. Like they had an ability to rug pull their users and steal the money and then walk away and profit and with all your Rune gone. But now that there's no more user vaults in the network anymore, we removed them like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. They weren't needed anymore. It creates a more efficient network. Now a passive node or a validator, for that matter, can't really rug pull. This needs to pull, right? And so the only way that you can rug pull is if you have like you're running 13 or whatever the hell the number is, like 14, 15 nodes, whatever the hell the number is, of a particular Asgard, which is really hard to do because it's somewhat randomly selective and all that kind of stuff. So you have to run like probably 30 or 40, 50 nodes to do that. And then it may be possible at that point, but that's extremely difficult and expensive to do. So like it becomes a lot more practical for sure. So, my focus is right now getting this yield bearing thing going and launch that hopefully the next month or so. Once that's launched, we'll see the pools get real deep real fast. Then we're going to run into another problem of the security of this on the bond side. It's not going to be high enough. It's going to be demand. The yield is going to be the incentive pendulum is going to be swung to the node operators and away from the Ps and the yield bearing synthetic people. And then all of a sudden there's going to be a push to add more bond on the bond side, and that's when I think I want to start working on this passive node concept.
It's great. Look forward to seeing this. Hopefully you put out a ADR or something like that before, these features, are fully developed just so people can discuss these. But these sound like, promising developments, I hope, in THORChain's future. The single-sided yield, as we all know, is like the holy grail of crypto products, never mind DeFi products. So,
yeah, for sure it is. It's a game changer for us, for sure.
Sweet. I brought up Arno and SpinZone. If anyone else has questions about anything, you can just raise your hands. We'll start with SpinZone. He's been waiting for a while. Hello.
Thank you for bringing me up. Really fascinating conversation. My question is about when you mentioned and the network starts adding, if you start reaching the limit, the network starts adding Rune from the reserve. My question is, would the network basically be taking on extra risk? I guess the reserve taking on extra risk. What are the parameters? Like, what's the safety of that? And then if the network is adding Rune to the pools, would the network be receiving shares, and would it be receiving a portion of the proceeds, basically? Would it be kind of competitor to LPs at that point?
So it would be the network itself, the reserve itself would become an LP. And so because of that, it buys a percentage of the pool and it gets whatever yield it generates from that concept. So it'll generate a revenue, and that'll all go back to the reserve. Which, in the long term, the reserve is just secreting rune into the pools anyway, into the nodes and all this kind of stuff. So it has another source of income to maintain that the network can always secrete rune, right, and block rewards, because it's just constantly generating a revenue as well. So some percentage of that comes back to itself for providing liquidity. So the other question as well, what about risk to the network?
Well, after what you just said, I'm actually worried of the opposite. Maybe what about monopolization of the pools by the network in that case?
Oh, there's a part of me that hopes that happens. That's a possibility. An outcome from this concept is that just the LPs just leave, and all that's left is basically the reserve and a bunch of yield-bearing synthetics. And if that happens, then we're in a better scenario, I think, in my opinion, just because the one thing we did learn that was useful and valuable from the own design was that how useful protocol owned liquidity is. And the reserve becomes protocol owned liquidity that just always hodls. They never sell it. It's not trying to maximize its flow. It just hodls the hell out of the pools. And so that just maintains that even in bear markets, the pools become just maintains its depths in a sense. And if you want to be an LP, you can. No one's going to stop you. Or if you want to get a loan, you can still do that if you end up going with the THOReau, which is, we'll talk more about that another day. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? It's mercenary capital is always problematic, right? We saw this happen with Sushi and Uni. When Sushi just came out, Uni got vampire attacked by Sushi. They lost all their pool depth, which is bad for Sushi, for Uni rather. And we don't want to see that, right? So we want to have more reliable capital. We want the pools to maintain their depths, even in bear markets or price times where the room prices getting hit hard, right, relative to markets. We want diamond hands to be in the pools to support the chain ecosystem.
I see. Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely worth a thought. I'm thinking of all the possibilities. Maybe the reserve could scare away LPs, or maybe actually LPs coming in would force the reserve to retract its positions. I'm also wondering, usually with Rune, you have to typically have dual-sided pools. So if the LPs pulled out their other side and there's base, this is obviously a very extreme scenario, but what if ultimately everybody left and there's only Rune in the pools? Would that work?
Well, there would never only be Rune in the pools. Arbitrage will always ensure that's true, right? So even if all the LPs leave, the pools will effectively remain the same, because as LPs are leaving, the reserve steps in while they're, to replace their position more or less. Right.
And who will own the other, let's say Bitcoin Rune pool? LPs leave, they take their Bitcoin with this. Is the network going to own Bitcoin at that point? Yeah,
the network, the reserve itself will be effectively price exposed to Bitcoin and price exposed to Ethereum and price exposed to Doge and all these things. Effectively, it's investing into an ETF. You can think of it that way. That the network is now long on Rune, but it's long on crypto in general. It's just acquiring more or less all the gas assets, the primary asset per chain. And it's just kind of taking a long-term position on crypto in general.
Thank you. I'll be marinating on this for a little bit. I appreciate you answering my questions. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks, Arno. Spin Zone, you there?
Yeah, how are you? How you doing, guys?
Good.
Just had two quick things. First is just a comment on centralized exchanges. And sorry about that. My phone was ringing in the background. I think that at least in my case, I've pounded the table on Rune to so many people. Unfortunately, they're not technical enough. So I've had to obtain originally the ERC20 Rune through, Uniswap or whatever. So I think that being on the centralized exchanges is going to be great for adoption, because you can just, hey, people can understand where THORChain's going. They can understand, whatever. It's an easy way to onboard them. And then I think the entire, what will ultimately be yield farming, THORFi, staking, single-sided, et cetera, is going to drag those people that are adopted into the system, believe in the coin, eventually to use, THORSwap to interact, just like they've bought in coins on Coinbase or Gemini, and they use Uniswap. So I think the more attractive the features and the yielding gets on the platform, and the more technical people that can't unfortunately use Uniswap or THORSwap yet, as they get more technical or the aggregators get easier to use, I think that's where a lot of the swapping and the pooling and the yielding and all that great stuff is going to bring them over to the platform. So I think the sexes, are a good thing. because they're going to bring a lot of people that just normally aren't comfortable with software or hardware wallets. They just don't understand the whole swapping. They don't know how to get enough gas in there for ERC20 to swap. And they just get frustrated and they say, I'm not going to buy it. And then once they're in it, as things get easier to use, they become more educated. That's when they'll come over to the platform, I think, to get yield, just like they did with Bitcoin and Ethereum on BlockFi or Lending or some of the other places where they just moved off one exchange to another to take advantage of again, yield. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to say that I think there's a benefit to the centralized exchange, to at least adoption in the early stages of kind of the non-technical people, which I think for the most part in crypto, there's more of them than there are of us at this point. And I think it's just healthy to get them into the system, and then they'll participate as they feel more comfortable. So I just wanted to kind of comment on some of the thoughts that were there. And then I think lastly would be the kill switch. And I'm just going to run this by you guys for your thoughts, because I don't know the entire, as centralized exchanges, et cetera, they're going to kill out, I would assume, the ERC20 as they convert to native, like Binance. Is that true?
Sorry, who's going to kill the ERC20?
Well, like Binance just switched over to native Rune. So they're not going to have any BEP Rune anymore, right?
Correct.
Okay. So my thought was, if as the exchanges kind of kill off and it's not supported, is it still a problem if you have hypothetically some of these latecomers? Of course, I'm not going to be one of them. I've already converted to native a while ago, but say these latecomers, you want to avoid, some of the headache. Isn't it possible just to allow them to swap one for one? The wallet will support ERC or BEP, and let's just say they're 8 months late to the party. They have to use THORswap ultimately to upgrade their Rune. Would that be a problem?
It'd be a problem in the context that, like, if they're 8 months late, it won't be 1-to-1. It'll be like 0.2 to 1. Or 1.
Yeah, no, I get the idea of the kill switch. I'm saying in a perfect world, hypothetically, you guys said, look, there's not going to be support for ERC20 or BEP Rune anymore. The exchanges are converting as they exchange over to the native Rune. Hypothetically, let's just say you didn't have a kill switch, and they transfer to full wallet or XT or whatever a year from now. Is it still impossible to have that mechanism for them to just burn off their BEP or their ERC20 and get a native Rune token?
No, it's not impossible. The question is whether or not we want to, how aggressive do we want to be as a project to get people to get off of the ERC20 or off of the BEP2 onto mainnet, right? So like we can leave the switch running for the next 100 years, hypothetically speaking, and people can try to one any given moment or two. The reason why I can advocate against that is, one, getting rid of the switch code is just one less thing and one less part of the code base, slightly less surface area for the code base and complexity. And two, we don't want to have people to get confused and like buy a fake asset that is not fake asset, but like a old that's no longer relevant anymore, and then be confused and like think they have one, but they don't have it, and just creates a bad scenario in the long run.
I'm just trying to think outside the box so that Discord doesn't blow up, and I mean, we just saw it with Terra Luna. Everybody had God knows how much warning, and I'm still seeing shit in Discord about people that are wondering if they can withdraw from the pool. I mean, it's insanity, but it's the nature of the beast.
That's the communication challenge, but it's something that team has been working on for a while. Like native Rune's been available for well over a year now, and it's it was first available. It's been publicized that the old versions of Rune are going to be deprecated, and I think that most buyers of say a new buyer of Rune would probably be buying it on a centralized exchange or directly on the something like THORswap or any of the other interfaces that use THORChain. So it's a communications challenge for sure, but I think that this is just kind of the way that it has to be done, because we need to move past them at some point, because they don't bring any value to the.
I agree 100%. It's not even a communications problem. It's a stupidity problem. I hate to say it. I mean,
yeah.
I watched the Discord thread, and I know I've been one of them. And that as a noob at one point, I had questions, but I mean, just some of these people blow my mind. Like, how did you even click a button to buy this shit? I mean, I don't get it. But anyways, keep up the great work, guys. I'm glad we're past the whole Luna debacle. I'm sure there'll be, out there in the crypto space at this point, many others. But again, the bright side is this the time to build, and this too shall pass. So fortunate to be part of the Rune gang, and look forward to all the new to mainnet and all the new things that you guys have been thinking about. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
This Susan. And if anyone else has questions, you can just hit the request button on the bottom left, and we'll get you up on stage. Are you there, Susan?
Looks like you just dropped down to listener. Maybe need to request again.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyone else want to come up? Can ask any questions. If you have questions about the single-sided
here's one
stuff. Or, all right.
Major. There you go. Major, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going?
Okay. Hi guys. I'm just wondering for the next question, since like FTX was the only exchange who literally delisted Rune for the mainnet swap, I guess. Have you already heard from them guys? Do they need some additional work? Because Binance just put deposits on hold, and they took a couple of days, and then they were back on, and it was native. And FTX for some reason sent out a cryptic tweet for they delisting Rune, and they might list it at the later point in mainnet. Have you ever heard from those guys that they're having some just technical issues, or what's the stand with FTX, since it's still a pretty big exchange? Other than that, no further question. Keep doing the great work, guys.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I haven't talked with FTX, but they're upgrading to native Rune. So, obviously not every exchange is as up to date on the space as Binance, and Binance has support from the team to basically setting up their node and running the blockchains. Obviously, they need to set up infrastructure to run and to know when they're getting deposits and withdrawals and what's happening on THORChain itself. So that's probably the challenge that FTX is going through, and they just don't. I don't know. They just that's the method that they're doing to get past this stuff. I don't know if you've heard anything else, Chad.
I'm not talking to them directly, to be honest, so I haven't had any conversations with them. Last I heard, there's not much of an issue or problem here with regards to that. But I don't know what the timeline is for that. I don't know anything like that. So I'm just waiting. I mean, the tweet was weird, and the article was weird the way they phrased it, and we reached out to them saying why did you phrase it this way? That's just a really funky way of going at it, and we just didn't get a response, to be honest.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They definitely could have phrased it differently. They just threw some unnecessary FUD into the mix for sure.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense to me either. It's confusing.
Yeah, let's go to Impossible Hunter. What's up?
Hey guys, quick question about the kill switch. Do you guys have a time frame of when that's actually going to go into effect? I think I missed that in the beginning.
Yeah, so after mainnet, the nodes will be able to. Nodes can vote right now on it, but we'll start campaigning for the kill switch to start after mainnet, and the date will probably be somewhere a month in the future, and then go for anywhere from 6 months to a year for redemption. So. There will be a solid month after mainnet of 1-to-1 full redemptions, but then after that, it'll start ticking down.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. And I also remember in the past that there was a potential of delisting Binance. What am I saying? Bitcoin Cash. Any updates on that?
I don't think any chain will be delisted from THORChain right now, because I mean, if you were talking about some kind of chain that is very costly, infrastructure wise to nodes, but then also has low volume. That might be a different story, but Bitcoin Cash, while it has low volume on THORChain, it's not, as far as I'm aware, it's not excessively hard to run. It doesn't cause a lot of problems on THORChain. It's just another chain connection. So I don't think anyone's actively looking to get it removed.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. Cool. Okay, thanks guys.
Sweet. All right, Citizen, are you there now?
Yeah, sorry, I got Twitter connection issue before. So the main utility value proposition of THORChain that I've been observing so far has been the native token exchange, right? Whereas other places were doing coins. With the Osmosis chain now introducing native tokens on their DEX and their ability to control vertically with their Kepler wallets, and now below DEX itself, where they're becoming a hub where they're inviting all the former Luna developers to launch their own apps on. How does a THORChain compete with that? Or what does a co-opetition picture look like going forward?
Hello, I have questions for this project. Can you hear me?
Hey, sorry, can you please mute your mic? Thanks.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, I don't think Osmosis is doing anything with layer ones. It's not structured to do so. It is talking about using Solar as a bridge to get into the Ethereum and other spaces. which I think was voted on as a community a while back as like the mechanism to create like Ethereum on Osmosis, but it's a bridge just like any other, not actually layer one. It's using some sort of wrapped asset. Technically, Osmosis doesn't work with any layer ones, even within Cosmos, because even Atom on Osmosis is technically a wrapped asset. You're locking the Atom token on the Atom chain, and then you're minting a new token on the other side that represents that 1-to-1 ratio, and then you're putting that into a pool. So technically, they don't have access to any layer one assets. Only Osmo itself is the only layer one that they have to interact with.
Well, that's what I thought too, because they were doing the using XLR as a bridge. They had the WF and wrapped coins using XLR. But on the recent conference, I think it was out in Texas, where Sony released the screen image of F and AVAX. Exchanging on Osmosis. And so I texted him, or I tweeted and asked him if that's actually a native token like on THORChain, and he said, yes, it is. So I was kind of surprised by that. He's been talking about like something akin to like a THORFi or lending exchange on DEX and all that stuff before as well. And he's been a fan of THORChain, I know that. This is obviously something that Osmosis Lab has been working on, that they released or unveiled at the recent conference, and it's not on their chain yet, but it looks like it's coming online.
Yeah, I'd be curious to like shoot me that tweet that you referred to. Just like I want to kind of read it more in depth. But
yeah,
my understanding.
I'll send you the DM on that a screenshot and the exchange that I had with them.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, we can. Yeah. Works.
Yeah, but THORChain is still the only cross-chain DEX that can support these UTXO chains. I mean, I guess it really depends on how they're implementing it, but it seems very unlikely they'd be able to implement something like THORChain does with support for Bitcoin or other UTXO chains like outside of the EVM space.
Well, like think about it this way: like their validators, they don't run Bitcoin nodes, right? So if they're dealing with Bitcoin, they have to offload that something to somebody else. And if they're offloading that something to something else, they're the ones that's doing the layer one interaction. And then they're receiving some sort of like wrapped asset effectively. So unless they're forking THORChain code and they're taking the Bifrost code specifically and they're going to like redo THORChain in their own code, which I haven't heard anything remotely close to that, but it's not technically possible for them to integrate with Bitcoin directly without their validators running Bitcoin nodes.
Yeah, I mean, knowing like how many lines of code that are involved in the complexity of the THORChain, it really caught me off guard, and that's why I specifically asked. It's like Sony's been talking about, because they're big on the easy UI UX interface, and that's how they get most of their users. So he's been talking about making the UI simpler, and that's why I initially asked him whether it was just a UI trick, right? So because that would be kind of dangerous, because like people are led to believe without that little W in front of it, it's like if it says F and AVAX directly, they're going to assume that they're buying the real token. And that's why I specifically asked them if it was a UI trick or the native token like THORChain. And his answer was simple. Yeah, like it is a native token. So we'll see. I mean, it's quite interesting because so far THORChain was the only one that could do that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that too. I'll try to find it. But yeah, I mean, you even said it was within Kepler, but within Kepler, you can't have like native ETH or AVAX. So I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, I'll send you guys a direct tweet section on that so that you guys can look into that further.
Yeah, maybe he's just talking about the aggregator. he's just aggregating. He's just aggregating.
Yeah, maybe it was a low key announcement.
So it's not like THORChain. It is THORChain.
What do you mean? What do you mean? They incorporated THORChain?
Possibly. I was talking about that in the beginning of the call, like them integrating with THORChain so that they can support layer one Bitcoin without actually holding any Bitcoin themselves. And so they just send the THORChain chain, like send some Osmo, send some Atom, whatever, and then it gets swapped to Bitcoin on the THORChain side and sends some Bitcoin, someone's BC1 address, right? So
from their UI, like the users don't know anything about it. They just know that they're swapping native coin to native coin on Osmosis without knowing that it's THORChain or anything like that.
Right. They would have no idea that's happening in the background.
Theoretically, right? I mean, I don't think this has been like anything officially announced, right? But in that case, they would still need a native wallet for the chain they're swapping to or from. So I suppose we'll see what's actually happening there.
Yeah, I think they would have to upgrade the Kepler wallet or something like this, or to allow it. I don't know. It's to figure it out with time, I guess. But It's totally possible to accomplish.
Yeah, and like our team is definitely open to helping Osmosis solve this problem, especially whatever we can do with on the aggregator front. Sonny was just in here earlier. You probably weren't in the call at the very beginning, but he was in here. We were just talking about the Atom integration and how that could basically interface with Osmosis. So hopefully we get them on board for an aggregator, and then we can offer real native support for real native swaps between Cosmos and all the other stuff. So,
by the way, when is THORChain bringing Atom on board as a native token?
Atom is on StageNet right now, and it should likely be launched next week, possibly the week after if there's delays. But everything is basically ready. It's on StageNet and just being tested right now. So everything's looking good for Atom, like very, very soon. And AVAX is a little further off. It's not on StageNet yet, and that'll need an independent audit before it would go live on mainnet. All right, thanks for coming on, man. All right, let's go to Gokhan. Sorry for cutting you off earlier. What's up?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
BRB.
First of all, thanks for allowing to me. I have questions, basically two questions. Do you think it will be the best project for decentralized finance for this year?
Sorry, is your question whether THORChain is the best DeFi project?
Yes. Yes, that is.
Yes, I would say that. Sure.
We would definitely say so. Not financial advice, but we're obviously big bulls on what's going on in the THORChain world.
The THORChain is basically cross-chain infrastructure that allows decentralized swaps between real native layer 1 tokens as Bitcoin to Ethereum swaps and whatnot.
Yeah, like imagine all these centralized institution type products that are out there, right? Like centralized exchanges for trading, or like BlockFi and Celsius for earning yield, or lending and borrowing and stuff like that. Like THORChain is really a way to achieve all of those same goals, but without the company in the middle, which is really the vision of crypto from the beginning. That has kind of been slapped together with centralized companies on top of it to make this stuff possible. So THORChain is really from my perspective, basically the most important project going in the DeFi space.
Obviously, take it with a grain of salt. This is a THORChain weekly live space.
Yeah.
So, any other questions from you, sir? Yeah, you can ask it.
Hello. My second question. THORChain will there an upgrade to this year?
Sorry, what was that? Repeat that.
THORChain will there an upgrade for this year?
THORChain will be going into mainnet in a week and in some change, if that's your question. It'll be on operation for the indefinite future. It won't be going anywhere.
Okay, so thanks.
Sweet. Thanks, man. Let's go to Total Value.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
What's up, man?
Awesome. I just wanted to confirm that, Binance.com is on the THORChain mainnet, and it's the native. So BEP2 is gone from Binance.com for deposit and withdrawal. I know because that you asked that somebody can confirm. I can fully confirm.
Sweet. We did it.
Yeah. And Kraken is also a native rune, and Crypto.com withdrawal is a native rune, not the deposit, as far as I know.
Oh yeah, that's a great point. I always kind of forget about those, but for the US folks, that's a good options there. So that's a pretty relatively simple way, like to somebody earlier who was asking about just the simplicity of kind of getting the normies into this world. Kraken and Crypto.com are definitely solid options.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be super worried about the transition, actually, because all of these major ones are moving, and whoever is having it, on the XDeFi or somewhere, I'm pretty sure they have done the upgrade. So I think, it's not a big deal from this point. I just wanted to also ask a question about the BEP2. Now that Binance has done it to us and taken away the rune BEP2, are we going to take away their BEP2 BNB and put it on BSC? This can be a good question for Chad B. I actually always wondered what's the reason that we are on BEP2, not BEP20. I think my guess is that once when THORChain started, it was BEP2 that was functional back then. But BSC, I have reasons for asking this because imagine the users of other exchanges other than Binance wanting to bring their BEP20 Bitcoin or BUSD or those assets, and we've seen they perform really well in terms of the volume. So I think having BSC instead of BEP2 opens up more options for people to provide the liquidity from central exchanges.
Yeah, I don't know if Chad's back, but I agree with you there that Binance Smart Chain is something that we're looking into integrating. We just have to prioritize where we're putting our resources, and I think that is the reason that BEP2 is supported rather than BEP20. So I'd definitely like to see Binance Smart Chain support for limited number of tokens on Thor. I think getting Binance Smart Chain support for BNB, some stable coins, and then major assets like BTC would be probably helpful, and just the increase liquidity overall. So I'd like to see that, and hopefully we get that in the future, as part of the prioritization of which chains are integrated to THORChain and which ones aren't.
Yeah, or get an aggregator going there with PancakeSwap or whatever, and just have BEP20 BNB integrated. Hopefully maybe I don't know what conversations they're having exactly around BSC, but with the AVAX coming and kind of knocking out some EVMs, I would be hopeful to see that. But yeah, I think as far as why it's BEP2, it's just kind of a legacy thing, right? Like Rune was launched on BEP2 itself, BEP swap was kind of where it all started. So
yeah, Binance Smart Chain didn't exist at the time that we launched the BEP2 asset back in 2019. I think Binance Smart Chain launched a year and a half ago, I think, or a year ago, whatever it was.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was the reason why we're on BEP2 and not BEP20. BEP20 didn't exist at the time. And we certainly weren't going to spend the time to try to migrate to a new chain like BEP20, and it just doesn't make any logical sense to me at all. But so we'll continue to support the Binance chain, I think, probably, unless we want to remove it. But adding Binance Smart Chain as well, I think I'm totally open to doing that at some point.
Cool. That's awesome. Actually, this BEP2 thingy, it's super awesome. Nobody else has this in a decentralized way. Even the other exchanges, you cannot withdraw BEP2, and it's kind of a fun thing to have. But yeah, thanks for the answer.
Hey, Secret Ninja.
Hey, I just wanted to clear it up a bit because I heard Sunny talk about it, how it works with the Osmosis native coin exchange. So the way it works is they have a collaboration with XLR actually, and every coin that is integrated or supported via XLR is first transferred to the XLR bridge. Then let's say if you want to switch our classical example, Bitcoin to Ethereum, you would send your Bitcoin to the XLR bridge, then it gets converted into WBTC on Osmosis. WBTC gets swapped to wrapped Ethereum on Osmosis, and wrapped Ethereum gets sent back to XLR, and then eventually to the destination address where the swapper wants his ETH sent to. That's how the mechanism works. And obviously, UI is just give me your sending address, give me your receiving address where you want to Ethereum sent to, and then everything of that works what I described right now works in the background. So that's how they're planning on swapping native coins between each other, and that would work with Solana, AVAX as well. Obviously, everything that is supported via XLR gets automatically integrated into Osmosis. That's the mechanism how I understood how it works.
Yeah, so XLR is providing a bridge between a native asset and a ICS20 asset on the Cosmos chain.
Correct, right. It's still a bridge mechanism. Yeah, that's the main difference between THORChain and Osmosis. The thing is, the regular end user, so to speak, doesn't really recognize the difference, right?
If you're a swapper, you probably wouldn't recognize much of a difference because you're transient in your exposure to the wrapped asset. But to somebody who's LPing that wrapped asset, they have long-term exposure to the health of the bridge.
That is true. Yeah. That is also because I'm a fan of both projects actually, and I provided liquidity for both projects. Yeah, but I still THORChain more in the way that I'm really exposed to native Bitcoin, and I'm still super nervous because I invested in Terra as well about this WBTC exposure, because I'm always thinking like, oh, what if something goes wrong, if the company behind WBTC like goes bankrupt and doesn't refund my WBTC to real BTC anymore, then it's worthless. So yeah, that's what I like more about the THORChain model. You're absolutely right in that. But yeah, I just wanted to explain, like, give a little bit of background on how the Osmosis team wants to tackle this issue, because I think like the more angles, we attack this issue, and in the end, like, the more decentralized are we, in my opinion. So I think it's a win, hopefully, and I in some way hope both models are going to work out. But yeah, that's true. That's the main difference in the end. Yeah.
Sounds like we need to get the Osmosis team on the line and get this aggregator right in there. Well, once we get the Atom integration, that sounds like what needs to happen.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. Also, like for the Atom integration, I don't know if you guys are familiar with THOReau, but he's like an Atom influencer on YouTube, and I have his number right now. So if you guys want to DM me and like do an interview with him on the Atom integration on THORChain, because he has questions as well. Like, he's always wondering, oh, why hasn't THORChain enabled IBD and all that stuff. So if I should you guys link up with him, I think that would be really cool, because he has a huge Cosmos following, and yeah, I think it would be helpful for THORChain as well, and to get the communication across that the collaboration is actually happening.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'll reach out to you as well about that. Can get something going, maybe with the THORSwap team too, or if we can do something, if Chad B wants to hear some THORChain core people too, that'd be great.
I think he's into this call, actually.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, so
let's make it happen.
Yeah, Crypto Student, let's do it, dude.
Yeah, cool. Definitely. Let's go.
LFG.
Let's get it. All right. Anything else that you guys want to say before you wrap up?
That's it from my side. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. That was that was informative. Didn't know that. Cool. Yeah, I don't see any other questions in the queue. So yeah, I think this was great. It's fun to catch up after a few weeks off and get all hyped up again. So I got my dose of Chad B hype. I was deficient. So yeah, this is great. Sir.
Yeah, I hope we can do these every week. Like, I really do try to do them every week, but it's hard because sometimes the team is out, like Chad's out, or I'm out, or just we really do try to do these every week, and that's the goal. But realistically, it might not happen to be like every single Friday, but we do our best to get this content out there, because I know that people have questions, and sometimes it's just a lot easier to ask your question just saying it rather than typing it in some Discord somewhere, just having no idea what's happening. So I hope these are helpful to people, and yeah, we will do them as often as possible. Try and continue to do it weekly. Sorry for the past couple of weeks being kind of on and off, but it's the way that it be.
Yeah, and if you tuned in late, you can catch recordings too. Just navigate back to where the space was tweeted, or they go up permanently on the Rune-based podcast. So that'll be up usually within a few days after on there, or immediately for the Twitter space itself. So yeah, you can always catch it there too. Cool.
All right. Until next week. Catch you guys later.
See ya.
Later.